Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and, not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week from the 6th of October to the 12th of October. And first for the video that, well, it's kind of weak sauce this time. It's not good, but it's, not the worst thing. It's just kind of disappointing. The New York Comic-Con convention, New York Comic-Con happened, but all digital and all on their YouTube channel. So I subscribed to it because I was directed to it, I think more than once, to a couple of their panels. And, I looked through, I didn't watch all of them, but I watched 3 of them because they interested me. And they each kind of happened to land in a different category, so that was interesting. And the one I didn't find all that good was the Crunchyroll one, Onyx Equinox and More, Crunchyroll original sampler, and it's because it's very, very lazy, all things considered. It's being moderated, kind of hosted by Tim, their go-to guy with this sort of thing. Good presenter, but you could tell he's very regimented. He can only say the summary of the show, present the trailer, and then rigidly go to the next one, and say you can watch it on Crunchyroll, whatever. But he doesn't really have his own. It's not scripted, but that doesn't necessarily excuse you from, like, you have to be rigidly saying these things. And so I thought that was kind of tough, and I get it because it might be a stipulation with the Japanese companies, but it's still. But the weird thing about it, the not so great thing, was that it's Onyx Equinox and More, but it's not really. They started with like a kind of a sizzle reel of all their originals, including High Guardian Spice and tons of these other ones that we haven't seen anything from yet. And then they show off this. So Tim does this thing where he does summary, really rigid summary, like he doesn't even try to sell it to you, just the rigid plot summary. You can tell he's reading it off. And then they just rigidly presents a trailer for Tower of God, and then God of High School, and then Noblesse. Shows that people have already aired or are just starting to air, right? Noblesse, it makes a little more sense. But, like, Tower of God and God of High School, seriously? And then it's like, finally we're going to get to Onyx Equinox. This is not out yet. It's good that it's new information, and it's obviously the title and the header of sorts. But there's very little of Tim in it, and it's just he says it. They're very transparent about it. It's just a recycling of their panel at Crunchyroll Expo about Onyx Equinox. It's not even exclusive content. It's regurgitated content. What? It's like, yeah, I guess it's for a new audience, I guess, but the audience doesn't seem to have reached that many people, at least according to the views that this particular video has, in conjunction with the other videos on this channel at this period of time in the convention. And it's like, why? And they showed like 2 different trailers, and they talked to the creators about it, and that's pretty much the entire rest of the panel. That's why that's the vast bulk of it. And I don't mind it. I thought it was interesting. But I was just like, you're not gonna say anything about your other originals or any new information? Like, what if people have already seen this? That was just like really weird to me, and it just felt very phoned in. Which is very uncharacteristic for Crunchyroll, I think. I mean, some people might say that. It's like, oh no, that's not character. That's very characteristic of them. I like to be a little more optimistic and say, no, I'm sure they didn't. But like, yeah, that was just very transparent to me of not a very good panel. I don't think they put that much effort into it. Oh well, but I didn't really have much else that disappointed me this week. Is a lot of it was really good. It's a good week. But the next video it's a little different, a little bit of an exception. I was recommended this twice, and it was technically given as a request video from Yellow Cheese, and it came out this week, so he didn't even have, he could have just sent the video my way and be like, yeah, let's check that. I would have covered it. Crayon Shinchan and Nostalgia, a video essay from Accented Cinema, kind of a bigger YouTuber, but like hadn't heard of him until now. And he does cover a couple anime stuff. But this is great to see. The moment I saw that, I'm like, someone made a fucking video essay on Crayon Shinchan 9, which is a movie I was aware of. I used screen caps from it in my screen caps video. I know about it from that Discord server as that being like the best movie, the best Shin-chan movie, easily. And that's not like what he's arguing here. It's just like how good the movie is. And he does bring up some stats of like a lot of Japan, like popular opinion. This is like one of the highest rated movies in Japan. Like they love the shit out of this movie. I can understand why, because it's a very Japanese centric idea of well, I guess not. It's a very universal idea, I guess, but it's speaking specifically to Japan, and referring to Japan mostly about about like this idea of the 20th century and the past and having nostalgia for it and wanting to be back there out of a disappointment and a dissatisfaction for the present. And it's like it was much better back in the day. So that's what the kind of the plot of the movie structures around. And I did not read the synopsis of this movie, but I knew I wanted to watch it at some point. So this was my introduction to it. And Extended does a very good job with selling it to you, and the visual component. It starts it with some sketches and stuff of his personal life and how he had kind of a rough childhood, and he wanted to contextualize that, his past, with this idea of nostalgia and toxic nostalgia, and how like the adults in the movie kind of revert back to children and like mentally, and it has a negative impact. So that's kind of what the movie is going, but he gets to a point like kind of like 9 minutes into the 16-minute video, and he's like, and this is the point where they have this beautiful montage. I can't show you all of it. It's on the level of like Up's 5-minute opening montage. It's on that level, and it's a great movie. You should watch it. Spoilers. And I was like, really wanted to watch it. And like he'd already spoiled me on like the core. I love the concept of this movie. I fucking love it. I was already sold on like the visual component, and then he was gonna spoil it. I was like, I can't. I have to watch this movie. So I have it downloaded now. Fuck. So I have not finished this video, but it was fantastic. Of course, I think he was presenting it very well, communicating the idea of the movie. A little plot summary, a little plotty summary thing, but that totally makes sense because this is a fucking Crayon Shin-chan movie that nobody in the West has ever heard of. Probably a lot of his audience has never heard of. So it totally makes sense in that context, and I think he does a very good job. It doesn't feel tedious in that way, although I obviously noticed it as somebody who watches a lot of YouTube. But I really liked it, obviously. But I didn't finish it transparently. But I love that he started it with stories of him with himself and contextualizing it, and very good delivery and very good presentation overall. It's a great video from what I've seen. And I will definitely finish it once I watch the movie, which it's like in the afternoon, and it's like I want that to be like a cinematic experience for me. I cherish these sort of things, right? I do think this will be a movie I love. So I'm going to wait till tonight to watch it. And then, but I have other things like digest to record, and then making and then editing it and everything. And then I have this other thing I'm busy with. Sorry to get personal and whatever. That I'm very busy. So this was a really painful, but I was like, oh, I have to stop it. I have to talk about it because at least one person was, Cheese was like, I'll make this a request video. I'm like, okay. Yeah, but I hope that makes sense. I think that's great that like this guy had 100K and was like verified, whatever. Kind of a bigger essayist, talking about a really obscure Japanese movie, like animated film, that's not the baity like Totoro, Ghibli, whatever. That's always great to see. Seriously, I hope we get more of that. We get more exploration of that. One of the videos I saw this week was really exciting in that direction that I'm kind of interested in. I would want to pursue that. I would want to watch the first 10 or 12, I believe, Shin-chan movies. There are like 20 of them. There's like 28 or something like that. A huge number of them. Make them every year. But I want to do that because at least the first 10 or so, because it's made by the original director, and those are apparently like really good. I read a blog on it at the time. But everyone raves about this 9th movie specifically, so I'm happy it's getting that exposure. Really want to see it for sure. And now for the videos that I thought were decent. I thought they were decent. And we'll start with another panel from New York Comic Con. I'm sorry I'm doing multiple videos from the same channel. Like that's not a thing. But like there's a lot of different things. So like the Crunchyroll video was the only video that I saw that I didn't really like, and I didn't want to just kind of skip over the not good section again. you know. But then this video, Revolutionary Girl Utena Manga Celebration, with Chiho Saito and Kunihiko Ikuhara, was pushed to me by a viewer, and her question was actually answered in the video, in their interview here, which was really cool. It's basically a Q&A with the author of the Utena manga and Ikuhara, literally Ikuhara. And it was presented by All the Anime, a British distribution company, like a licensor in the UK, I guess. And they did a very good job, very formal and very insightful. It had like a good combination of standard questions of like, what does it mean to you kind of deal, and their background and how kind of like the history with Utena and stuff, and how Saito got involved. But as well, so it's like some funny questions, like not like funny, but kind of quirky and like kind of fandom-y. Like if the characters in Utena were in the universe of Sarazanmai and vice versa, how would they interact with each other? And like Ikuhara is like, I bet these characters from Utena would turn into kappas, and then this character would be a cop. So if you're familiar with the lore with Ikuhara, there's some kind of nudges and stuff, and it's really fun. As well as confirming, Ikuhara confirms in this interview that he is working on his next work, which is really exciting. It's really cool. He didn't say anything else, but he's like, yes. They're like, are you working on the next thing? Like, yes. So that was cool. The thing I was a little disappointed in is in contrast to the video I'll talk about later, which I thought was one of the best videos I saw this week because it was incredibly insightful. I thought at first was that they were doing this live, and they were doing like a live chat thing. But it was actually hand selected through Twitter questions, like pre-prepared basically. So there really was. So they recorded this beforehand, and there could have been a period of post-processing, meaning what they had was a live translator. They would either Saito or Ikuhara would talk, and then without any subs, and then we would wait for the translator to say what they said. And I don't think that's as ergonomic as just having them translate, like this, just have the translator, because you want to hear what they're saying, but I think the seeing the subs while they're talking, you can get an understanding of like, yeah, that is what they're saying, or you might be able to get some, if you've listened to Japanese a lot, or even studied it, of course. Not that I don't trust the translator. I think she did a great job, and the interpreter. It was just very difficult as a video viewing experience, because you would kind of just sit there listening to Ikuhara and Saito without knowing what they're saying. Maybe a little bit, right? But it's kind of frustrating. Especially, and then you have to kind of wait for the translation, right? And then you having him listen through her voice, and it's her on screen, the interpreter. I just felt that wasn't the best way to go about it, especially given the other interview I list later, I'll talk about later, where the English speaker asks the question, and then there's they just answer in Japanese, and there's subs underneath. That's it. It's like you just translate it, and there's no you get the interpretation as you basically cut out the middleman. Which I don't think they do here. And I feel like if they did that, they definitely would have had time for more questions. I understand with the New York Comic Con, the way I think this convention was run was on YouTube, was like with live YouTube premieres. And so they had to move on to the next thing. They had to be under a half hour or so. So that significantly comes into their questions if they have to sub it, right? If they have to have Ikuhara or Saito speak, and then have the person interpreting it, and and there's a lot that's lost there, I think, because there was a moment where Ikuhara and Saito are kind of giggling to each other about the idea with one of the questions, and that's hard to translate live in that format, right? So I mean, it's not much, but it's enough to be like, I missed something there. At least as someone who really cares about these sort of things and really want to hear what they're saying, who really are invested in their work, right? That's just my feedback on it. It happened. What it be? And I'm very glad that the other one, at least the other one that I saw, did that. I think it was went for much, and you were able to get a lot more information, I think. Anyway, although yeah, I really enjoyed it, despite not being the biggest Utena fan, right? I thought there was really good questions that were asked, and they provided pretty satisfactory answers. I just don't know if it was the best, you know, it was the most well handled, I guess, but that's not a big deal. Still cool. I checked out an AMV from GoufyGoggs, Suffering Soul, Get a Robo Armageddon. Very short AMV, little death metal song, and it's pretty much just like experimenting with like a filter, this very like grainy black and white, rough digital kind of filter with Get a Robo Armageddon footage, which was super raw. And then with this like super black, I don't really know metal music, the genre. I don't want to say like death metal or black metal. I know there's definitely differences. But I liked the song. I dig that, and it was working really well with both the aesthetic and the clips they were using. Although the clips they were using, a lot of it was like the money shots. It's like the shots is like you want to include those. A lot of stuff that the clips that I was familiar with as someone who had made a Get a Robo video and used that footage, right? That was always fun, but it was fun to see that that filter be used, because it's like, oh yeah, and that is transformative for sure. Although the novelty does eventually wear off, and it's like, yeah, you get the idea, and you could have just some feedback, right? Take some steps further where like, maybe not add more to it, but like trying to do slightly different things. I feel like it was just very. And it's good that it's a minute 40 in that way. It doesn't outstay its welcome, I don't think. And it's not a big deal when it's when you just have clip selection, one visual gimmick, and that's it. I did that for my Wicked City AMV. I just have like an arithmetic thing and like a little weird zoom in thing, but the majority of that is clip selection. So then the clip selection really has to be paying attention to it with syncopation a lot. I don't think there was a whole lot that was done with the syncopation in this video. Not like it's a bad thing. It's hard for me to really criticize AMVs, right? Because it's an art. It's much more of a means of expression, much more than like a video essay, right? But I would say that like the clips felt very cobbled together, and just like on all the highlight reel, like kind of the best, most badass Get a Robo Armageddon moments, and wasn't really trying to tell like a narrative, and that's okay because it's very clearly more of an experiential type of thing with the type of filter you're using. You can't really tell what the shot is at first or what's going on. It's very glitchy in that way. I think there's ways to kind of present multiple set pieces and make more experience in that way. But then again, it's a minute 40. Well, you can't, what do you do? But I really liked the idea. I liked I like the choices. I love seeing AMVs like this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool shit. Yeah. Thanks for sending me that, by the way. I watched a video from ThePsychicExtremist talking about how gambling series create the best antagonists. And I'm seeing me some Kaiji and Akagi. I'm like, oh yeah, man. And he does mention a couple other series, but I didn't quite catch their names. I would have been interested to kind of get more information about those other series you mentioned a little bit. I don't know. The way you described Washizu was fantastic. And I felt like I was missing that from some of the other stories and kind of an idea of like what those are about. Because it's like, I mean, the people who are watching your video, at least the audience you have, right? It's very likely they know what Akagi is, sort of deal. So it was easier for me to be invested in what you're saying when you're showing those examples and when you're kind of talking in those terms. And then when you use the other ones, I'm interested, but I don't have as much context. And that's just me, maybe. Maybe other people are complete opposite, so what do you do? But I liked especially how much detail you went into Washizu as an antagonist, and what you like about him. And I agree that the idea of the scenarios that gambling presents, where it almost becomes, you almost kind of root for the bad guy in the same way, like you really kind of see where they're coming from. That more like balanced uh, fight, battle, conflict is the word I was looking for. That one becomes much more interesting and more heated, and especially in a series like Akagi and Kaiji, where Fukumoto really undercuts your expectations, and Kaiji's not going to win all the time. You actually don't know if he's going to win. And so it becomes way more tension filled, especially with how much detail he puts into his antagonists, for sure. Where it's like, I mean, he seems to care a lot about this as much as the protag. Maybe even more so in the case with Akagi. Because Akagi, from what I remember of it, I didn't read all of it, but I did watch the whole anime, and I've seen bits of the manga for sure. From what I know of with Akagi, he's very much like kind of sucked into his own head, and we don't really the reader doesn't get as much from Akagi, and you kind of are experiencing it from the perspective of his friends and other people around him, of what he does. It's more of like an observant kind of protagonist, not like a perspective protagonist. I'm just making up words. So then that often leads to the antagonist Washizu being more fleshed out. You learn his backstory and the thoughts that he's going through in his head, and in going through that, it ends up, I think he makes for a really good antagonist in that way. So I mean, that was good. I would say that the visual component is what it is. I like the panels you were doing, but it wasn't standard. It wasn't wowing me on a visual level, but it doesn't have to, it wouldn't be. But I like that video. Nice job. I saw Kenny Lauderdale's new video on the underwater Nausicaa anime, Coral Reef Legend Elfie in the Blue Sea, and I did not know about this movie. Came out 2 years after Nausicaa, interestingly, and he really leans into the idea of it being a knockoff without too much evidence. I think it's just kind of anecdotal. Like, it's very clear that there's a lot of obvious parallels, but I don't really see it. I mean, I kind of see it, but I thought it was a bit of a stretch. I thought it was a little bit of a lean to really try to grab that audience. He's really trying to, because that's the game, right? And he plays that game very overtly, which is I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, I do admire that he's talking about stuff that nobody's heard of, not even us people who are really deep into it, right? He's really going into the weeds, and I appreciate that. But then a lot of it ends up being kind of overt, like kind of like a metatextual, like about the surrounding, like, you can only get a VHS of this in Portugal, or like kind of metatextual information, which is definitely a unique angle that really only he talks about than any other of these anime YouTubers. But I think, to me, it kind of got in the way of the movie, because like he doesn't really talk much about, besides like a basic plot summary. And maybe you could have kind of like talked about really lean more into the Nausicaa angle of like, so does she care about both the people and the sea, or you know what I mean? I just felt that Kenny was just kind of doing the very surface level, like he saw the poster for Nausicaa and thinks that this is you know what I mean? As someone who is like, Nausicaa is literally my favorite anime movie. Like Nausicaa is like my third favorite anime of all time. I love that movie. As an understatement. So like, as someone going into this, I'm a little skeptical. I think he definitely did a pass. I think that was decent. But yeah, I just kind of had those feelings about it, and I didn't feel like I got a great understanding of this the way I think his other videos have, like Dragon's Heaven. Like, you really feel you get a fundamental understanding of that OVA and what it's trying to do and the experience of it, as well as Golden Bat. I think he did a much better job with Golden Bat, even though I think I had problems with that video too. I don't remember. I mean, I remember, at least on hindsight, I like it, so that's something. I guess. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say about it. I guess it's another Kenny video, I guess. And I'm trying not to like cover everything that he does, right? But when you're talking about Nausicaa, of course I'm going to talk. Of course I want to check it out. So yeah, would it be? I saw a video from Erika Friedman, just recommendations, and she's mostly a Yuri blogger. I've talked about her before. And again, I'm happy that people like her are in the space of YouTube and trying it out. And this was interesting because it was mostly an exercise for her to be practicing at video editing. And she says that very transparently, both at like the beginning and at the end of the video. And she talks about I used Audacity. I used this free video editing software. I actually paid for the pro version, like $20, whatever, to get the pro because it's that good or whatever. And she's practicing it as she's practicing making her own videos, and I think that's awesome. As someone who like really likes seeing that kind of growth and willingness to improve, and like caring about the craft, I guess, even if the craft it ends up having a lot of hiccups, I really admire it and really respect it. And also the idea of like being transparent with your audience, where you're like, you guys, like, she's very personable with her audience, like her very core audience, like few couple people that she talks with often in Discord. She has like her own Discord server, and like I guess they have conversations. And multiple times in the video when she's giving these recommendations, she's like, "Oh, your fans of longtime readers are probably gonna laugh at me for this recommend. If you know me." And you get a sense of what she likes. Besides Yuri, I learned in this video that she really likes weaponry and kind of swordplay and more of that sort of stuff. And she recommends Moribito as a very like anime anyone could recommend. She recommends it unequivocally. And one sort of thing she admires about it that's very small in detail, but she really respects and stuff. It was really cool. Like those personal touches and really getting to know the person, I think is great. And I like her perspective on recommendations, where she's very hesitant to give recommendations because she always has to find caveats for it. But in this video, I feel like she was really trying to exercise the ability of doing that. And she's like, I want to recommend this to people, but I always feel like maybe it's not going to be for them, or I know that I've had my problems with people recommending stuff to me. So like, I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, I should mention, like, going into it, it's like I'm happy that she is transparent about this being a learning experience for her and trying to practice editing, because it's not the best looking video, right? And I do mention in the previous video I had where the editing seemed kind of primitive in places, but there's just places where like she didn't stitch the two clips together. It's not seamless. There's like moments of black where there's empty spaces and stuff. So it's still a learning process for her. But I'm happy that she still kind of put it out there. I would have always been like stressing about that and making it very perfectionist sort of thing. But she understands it's an exercise, learning experience. And I think that's great. And I felt that towards the end she was getting more comfortable on camera, and that was cool. I thought that was great. And learning more about her tastes and interests, and learning more about... I didn't know the majority of stuff that she recommended here. She recommended some visual novels, some manga, some webcomics. The only thing I knew was the anime was Moribito, which makes sense. I'm pretty much just an anime guy. What it be? But that was really great. And I thought it was plenty of nuance. It was really interesting. It's just that, it's very off the cuff still, and very rough. But I'm happy I was happy to see it. And I watched Ocean's opening analysis for Jujutsu Kaisen, and I was not going to watch the OP because I didn't want to be tempted by like, what if it's a bop? Because it is a bop. But I was like, I wanted to see him try to analyze an OP. I wanted to see how that was. What's that like? So I ended up watching the OP first and then watched the video. And I think he spends a lot of the time on the beginning, kind of like towards the first few shots. But I like some of the observations of like whether a character is facing frontwards or backwards from another character, because his head is you can just see his head, but the way his hair is designed, he could be facing either direction, and it could mean two totally thematically different things based on the context of the story. And his description of it was great. And I was spoiled to one death, but like, and I was wondering of like how much do you really? I guess you do have to mention it because there's that one quick shot. I guess there's that one thing. I guess you need. But I was happy that like it seemed that you were fairly restraintive for the spoilers and stuff. And I'm happy you put the spoilers at the beginning as well. That was nice. But I was like, yeah, I don't have too much investment in getting into JJK just because It's another ongoing manga series, another ongoing series in Shonen Jump that I don't know how long it's gonna go. I don't want to just get stuck in there and be like, I'm waiting forever for it to finish and stuff. I don't want to do that. But you know, it looks really cool. And I thought his analysis was really great. You know, I didn't have too much personal investment in it. It wasn't like super blown, like my mind blown kind of deal. But it was a comfortable watch. I don't know what that means. Comfortable. You know? Yeah, it's just that I don't have too much investment in JJK, I guess. But like, it was cool to hear about it. Also, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like I have to look it up. But like, whenever I saw discussions of it on Twitter, when I saw the name Gojo, I thought that was the name of the author. Like Horikoshi, I thought that was the name of the author. It's Gege. That's it. I remember. Okay, so Gege's the author, and, and then Gojo is the character. Gotcha. Cool. That was a little confusing. But I'm like, oh, that's his name. All right. No, but anyway, that was funny. But you know, some of the analysis was really solid and very, very Jeff Thuian of you, very Thuian of the If you notice the shape of the negative space shaped in the very, if you turn it sideways, it's the anatomical design of a heart. And you see that, and it's like, yeah, I guess. Wow, you know, that is pretty subtle there. And you know, it's very sharp observations and things. But I dug that, and it was pretty meaty, all things considered. It was like for a very impromptu video for sure. But I thought he did a good job with that. Also giving some like minor criticisms and stuff like that. That was cool too. Yeah, I don't have too much else to say about it. It was like, yeah, that's a video. So great commentary, great. Yeah, and now I'm going to talk about what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones that I was like, yo, that was dope. You know, I'm really feeling it. And the first is, again, Funebure. I think I give you one of your videos a decent. But I feel like I always give your videos like a best thing. Because it's like, and what's funny is, I watched your video right after Kenny's. And the difference in quality from like a visual standpoint, like Kenny does very, very, very little with his visuals. I think he does like kind of enough to make it not seem primitive or like bad. But like I mean, I'm sorry if it's a broken record, but like Funibori really seems like a YouTuber that should have like 600,000 subscribers. Like he should be like it feels like you've been doing this for years, dude. And like you have like, I love in this video you kind of bring more of a community thing together, and so you're talking on Discord and you're like, I like that idea, and like more transparent with your creative process of like, what do I make a video about today? But then you don't break your character or the aesthetic of your video. You're still throwing in mysterious quotes and like jumping in little audio. Your audio design in these videos are so crazy, so bizarre and out there, but very engaging. But like, I like that you were a lot more like fourth wall-y, like kind of more like personable as a creator, and like, I don't know what to make this stuff. Yeah, and you were going through like the different things to make, and you settled on this idea of and to be honest, I don't know if you articulated the idea the most clear to me. It took me like till like more than halfway through the video when you were getting into the idea with designing this tsundere monster, that I was like, oh, okay. And he's taking like each of the 7 sins, and he's like, tsunderes usually are very prideful or wrathful, but they don't have as much going for them with gluttony, and kind of going through each of the deadly sins and having like this little meter there back and forth of like how much he subjectively feels that tsunderes typically have in terms of these sins, and then using that idea, articulating very, very eloquently, I thought, kind of how they utilize that character, how they embody that characteristic, and then translating that into a design sentimentality. So he goes through multiple redesigns of this character. He's basically creating a tsundere monster, and like he says like initial design, and it slowly builds and builds and builds, and then kind of refines it as he's going through the different qualities. I thought it was really interesting. Again, it was really hard to figure out what it was at first, but when it's like, when you see the structure of it, like you get the feeling of it, you're like, oh. And again, I think I may have said this in previous videos of yours and stuff, but like I think a lot of it ends up being, I'm so distracted by the style and how invested and involved it is on an audio visual component, that I kind of get lost in the weeds of like the structure of where the video is going. But that's fine. You know, there's a lot of videos like that are more on an experiential basis, that are great in that way. So I really like this idea. Again, I really like that you were more transparent as a creator and like bringing an audience in and like as an interactive sort of thing. And like, you know, here's my Discord in the description sort of deal, joining a conversation of sorts. I thought that was really great. And then the polish is still fantastic. And I think the more practice you get and the more of a rhythm you develop, because you also mentioned in the video how you know, it's like it'll be a miracle if more than one of these videos comes out in a month, because he wants to make this kind of like the spooky month, right, and do multiple days. But like it's a lot of work what you're doing here. But I think once you start getting a feel for like a rhythm and a routine of like, I can just take this from the other video and stuff and kind of have like a template of sorts. It makes each video, but like, you know, I like that also, that despite having a very set aesthetic for your channel and your videos, each video does feel like a wholly unique experience. You're not recycling the same background over and over. At least it's not that transparent. But maybe like to speed up this process, if you feel like, if you're branding this as the Garden of Waifu Delights and it's a, you know, it's the same type of video, just multiple, and you're doing different kinds, you're exploring the idea of a tsundere or a yandere, etc., maybe you could get away with using the same assets and you don't have to recreate a lot of stuff. But that's just an idea. But you know, you might run into some other problem. You know, there's a lot of challenges, I imagine, making a video like this, because it's very creative, because you're literally like writing and making this really aesthetically pleasing video, but you're also drawing. You know, you're actually making art in this. Like, you're actually drawing these characters multiple times and like refining a character and documenting that process. I think that's a wholly other unique challenge, and that's really interesting. So I mean, props for how much effort you put into these videos for your size. Again, it's like, I think it's going to pay off, and I just hope you keep doing it. It came off to me where it's like, I was thinking about it. It's like, man, I really hope he keeps at it. You know, as much as you just keep having fun with it. I think if you don't have fun with it anymore, then it's like, would it be? But like, I hope you're not discouraged by your size. I hate to keep bringing it up, but it's very, it sticks out to me as so disproportionate and so uncharacteristic for the majority of YouTube. You know, like all these bigger guys are what you're doing, and all the small, you're on a completely other league, dude. I don't know. And then I don't know. Yeah, like, I'm sure it's more information you've already heard. It's what it be. But I'm happy with your frequency too, by the way. Anyway. Great video, of course. I watched STEVEM's Lost Ghibli movie you've never heard of course. This is super interesting, super obscure. This movie that literally just never got made. I think it's called Border 1939, and there was an article that STEVEM mostly takes from, and then he collaborated with the author to get all this background information and why the movie probably wasn't made. You know, it was being developed, and then Tiananmen Square happened, and they have this very strong clashes with China and Japan, have this very tight animosity towards each other that's existed for a while, and that movie Border 1939 might kind of prod it, and Ghibli doesn't want to make any commentary on it, and you know, it's very obviously very swept under the rug, but it's based on a novel, and there was a lot of visuals for it, and I think STEVEM does a great job articulating not just kind of the movie and not making it feel like a lost media type of thing, but really like a historical moment. And I was getting a lot of pause and select vibes, actually, with like the amount of kind of real life citations and sources that you were showing constantly, but it still has your level, STEVEM's level of creative artistry the fact that he can illustrate and have like the the illustration of Takahata, and creating kind of picturing in your what it could look like. I know that I don't know where you got that. I'm pretty sure it was you, having like the horse and then Lord Yupa, but it was like as the character from Born in 1939 that you're kind of alluding to. But he's like, this is what it could look like, sort of deal. I thought it was really interesting, and give me some further commentary on the nature of war films and anti-war films, and how like no film is really anti-war because they don't really move the needle the same way that people would like them to. Citing this really crazy, like just the fact that it's like 9 hours. It's like a Japanese movie that's like 9 hours long, that like only 15 minutes of it show the actual war. The rest of it is kind of more experiential, which is really interesting. But it had a lot of really like insightful commentary and information, and citing a really important resource. I also like that he had a lot more of your face in the video, and I know you've been experimenting with in other videos, but I think it worked especially well in this one. And again, it was giving me that pause and select vibe where Joe has been starting to use his film himself talking as he's integrating that with his general voiceover. And I think it works really effectively because they end up kind of pulling the audience's attention towards what you're saying, or I don't know, it gives a certain aesthetic to it, a certain attachment, and a level of engagement that's interesting. And it was well lit, of course. That was nice, well chosen. So of course, STEVEM is pumping out grade A shit, way more, on a way better frequency. I don't know why I can't. I don't know. It's like just make a 10-minute video, make it good, dude. I'm like, I don't know why my only my big videos have to have this huge fucking production to them. Anyway, tight package too, right? It was only 10 minutes. It was great watch, of course. Exposing Hirohei from KorewaEden, and Eden's like the last person that I would expect to make a video going after Hirohei. After like a lot of other people, I mean, I was aware of Hirohei with the Kick Vic drama. He was one of the major people riding that wave, but he gained a lot of attention and support very recently with finding very clickbaity and hotline and outrage type of content, and a lot of people follow him. Apparently Eden has a lot of crossover appeal, and he's like, I'm probably not, this is probably a bad idea. And nobody could have made a video like this besides Eden. I think if anyone else was making a genuine criticism and like a takedown of Hirohei's content, like I certainly didn't want to. I just, it just wasn't content for me. I knew I wasn't going to like, so I was going to have an innate bias towards it. And I also know that like, it would be giving him attention and stuff. And he loves that. That's what he wants, that. Because it's more content for him, right? So I was like, I'm just going to kind of avoid him. But like Eden really goes out in there and like not afraid at all. The opposite, actually, like very like, yeah, nothing's gonna happen. He says he's like, I might be causing World War III, sort of deal. But like, he has the flippancy and the tongue-in-cheek and the crassness and the editing style to kind of back it up. But like genuinely cares, genuinely will watch the video and like really give his thoughts about it and not have any. He doesn't have any political slant. He fucking trashes this one comment towards the beginning where he's like, this is left leaning, and he's like, no, it's not. It's not political at all. It totally mocks the guy. I don't, like a lot of us who would go after Hirohei don't have that smarminess and the bite that Eden has, and I think he's just, and it works for him. He likes making this content. He's been doing it for other channels as well, and it's just so perfect. It's just such a success, and I also like that like it really came from a place of make better content, dude, and not just like this guy's a piece of shit. Like, he doesn't say that. He's like, I want to have sex with Hirohei, and here's my number. And like, gives him genuine feedback of like, look, have more transformative content. Just don't just read an article and read a few comments and call that content. And really kind of going after him for like a lot. I think what a lot of us would, but like, I think a lot of us would maybe try to like take more of a political thing, and he doesn't. Eden doesn't at all. He really takes it purely from a video crafting perspective. He's like, these are so unbearably uninteresting. He's like he makes 3 videos a day and then goes to the bottoms of the like the deepest, darkest, the most uninteresting, like irrelevant shit. Like totally like rakes him over the coals for it. But like in a tasteful way that like I think Hirohei would be like, yeah, that's a funny video. I genuinely think that. Whereas I don't think anything I would say or that any of these other people quote tweeting him, right, or screen capping his videos, right, as people do, would be able to get to him. I don't think. And because at the end of the day, it really is like everybody has the potential to make really additive content. I think Hirohei, with the amount of drive that he has to make this much content and to have such strong opinions, and a very making these straw mans or whatever, I think he could do really well, really diving into some issues and really doing some journalism. I think maybe that's not profitable, and then it's like, well, shit. I guess that's it. But it's like, I think with the talents that he's accrued with making these videos on this channel, he could make a really good impact, a significantly positive impact with people, and maybe he has already. I just think that what he's right now, I think it's very divisive, and I think he knows that, and I think he likes it, and it's fun for him. But I don't know. I think there's more of a universally positive thing, impact that he could have. Just like any anime YouTuber, I think. But you kind of judge the content as it is right now. And I think Eden does a great job really taking him to town on that, while having that flippancy, and he's great at it. I'm hoping, I'd like to more of this. I fucking like it. And it seems that he likes it, and his audience is reacting strongly to it. So it's like, yeah, let's go full steam. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, I'm happy he's found this new circle to play with. Because I know Eden, I think he was starting to struggle with some creative block, like some writer's block of sorts. So he's like, I don't know what to make a video on, kind of deal. But I'm happy to see he's found something to sink his teeth into, and I think he's really good at. So that was great. And yeah, the video from the New York Comic Con that I was very invested in is a first look at Japanese phenom Anpan Man ahead of US debut on Tubi. So they are debuting 10 animated films from the Anpan Man series for the first time in English and Spanish. I don't know if that means dub or sub. They kind of just show an opening for one of the movies. They kind of just show an opening scene without any subs. They didn't really have any. It's not really a first look. That was a lot of people's complaints in the comments, but very valuable interview with the director of Anpan Man of like the first 20 movies, and like the director of the TV series, and then like the executive producer, to talk about why Anpan Man is so popular, why it's sustained so much, and give more information that I'd never heard. Like, nobody in the West gives a shit about this show. And this is really exciting because it's going to be on a legal streaming platform, and in 2 different languages, and they're really stepping out to try to make a worldwide debut for it, because it's been a largely Japanese phenomenon, and it's a very, very, very lucrative series monetarily, but they don't really mention that so much. They take a more holistic approach of like, what's the appeal of this show? Why do so many people like it? Who's the demographic? They have a Guinness World Record of, I didn't know this, but they have the Guinness World Record for most characters in an animated series, like over 2,000 characters, like dead ass. Because I guess they have a new character every episode, or some. No, not really. I don't know, but like, and then I guess they're recurring, and the little footage they were showing, which it seemed like very recent footage. I couldn't. It seemed like very digital, kind of like 2017 through 2019 sort of footage. Um, we don't know which 10 movies that they are bringing over. I think for that reason, it was a very general interview, and I can understand people being kind of disappointed by it. But I mean, for someone who really cares about anime and the history of the medium and really exploring the things that, not just saying that Sazai-san is important, like you want to like really get the appeal of but like Sazai-san is way up there, right? Like that's like thousands and thousands and thousands of episodes that are like, I don't know how many of them are even subbed, if any. you know but that's like super intimidating. But like Crayon Shinchan, Detective Conan, well, Detective Conan at least has a very strong US presence. Gegege no Kitaro and Pan Man, these are giants, fucking juggernauts. Like this is like characters that every Japanese person recognizes, is what they were saying. It debuted in 1988, but like I felt like I got an understanding of this series in a way I've never had before in an English language video, without me like just looking on Wikipedia or something. And it was very insightful from the director. I loved hearing about how much involvement the manga artist, the original author, it was actually not even a manga, it was a picture book. And it was just a picture book series. And that had never been done before. And they were talking about how like this had never been done before. This was kind of weird, and like they weren't sure how it was going to go. Maybe if it gets past half a year, it'll be considered a success. And then they've been going for 30 years. It's just really interesting and very humble, and doesn't come from the, I would kind of argue, Orientalist sort of perspective that people have with Pan Man, where it's like, oh, Japan! Whoa, they care so much about this bean paste guy. Whoa! And like kind of blowing it up of how big a deal it is in Japan. They really don't play that here. They mention it, of course, because it is kind of legendary, but it's so much more humble and like grounded, and you really get the idea and the soul behind this, and it's very wholesome. A very, very wholesome series, and like things they admire about it. And I felt like I got a really good understanding of a series I've been curious about, at least, like, as someone, really wants digging into this medium like way more than the typical fan. Very difficult to know anything about this series, and I thought this was very insightful. And I think it's very exciting that they're making this leap to an English language audience. I don't know if it's going to be dubbed, or I would imagine it has to be dubbed. It's for 2 or 3 year olds. That has to be. It's not going to be subtitled. What? I would hope not. But they didn't really give a first look in that way, or who the cast is or whatever. I mean, how do you cast this when there's so many characters, right? But I like that it's going to be just kind of 10 of the films. I don't know if it's the first 10 or the latest 10 or an assortment of... There's 30 movies. There's 30 of these movies, and it's like 10 of them. Okay, which ones? And I haven't read a blog post like the Shin-Chan blog post I read, because apparently most of those are subbed. I don't even know how many of these Ant-Man movies are subbed. I think one of them just recently got subbed. I don't remember which one. But like, nobody has started with like, this is a good movie, this is not a good, like, in terms of the grand scheme of the series, right? So that's really interesting, and gives me ideas. It really does. Even though this is like the equivalent of like Sesame Street for Japanese, and apparently they may make a mention how like kids learn the word Ant Man before they learn like any other words. Like that's how present this is. And because it's been going for 32 years, they were like, yeah, there are now people who were infant, like toddlers when they started watching Ant Man, and now they're parents and their kids are watching Ant Man. Like they talk about that, and it's incredible. I just find that really fascinating. And I loved that panel. I couldn't get enough of that, and it was orchestrated very well with them actually having the subs when they're talking. I much preferred that over how the Ikuhara panel went. My God, yeah, it was fantastic. Can't recommend that enough if you're remotely curious about Ant Man. I thought it was very insightful, and it's very exciting that they're it was also nice that it's a real life event. It's like, this is actually becoming a legally accessible thing, and like, I don't know, it was awesome. I was so happy to see that. But I'm gonna give the best of the week to an actual YouTuber, because that's nice. I mean, I did it with Funimation at one point. Fuck it, whatever. Uh, the problem with Trash Taste from Jackisboy was a fantastic video, kind of skewering the idea of trash taste, but like the way that these problem videos do, and I think it's the best one so far, because Jackisboy is really pushing the limits of his visual presentation and the visual inventiveness of everything, and not like it's polished. It's still very crude and like video edity, like slap random images everywhere and like slow zoom in of a thing or whatever, primitive stuff. But the amount of images, rapid fire, and transitions and like really fun stuff, it's a very visually inventive video. I don't know if he was in the call when we were talking about this, but I think we were talking about the video, me and some of the other guys, and it's like I was looking at the comments, and all the comments are just other YouTubers, I think, I don't know if it was Core or someone else that was like, yeah, Jackisboy is pretty much like a YouTuber for other YouTubers, because like we appreciate the sort of humor and the visual humor and the gag and the meta commentary and the emotions that he's conveying here, as if it's sarcastic or he's putting on a character or an act or whatever. I was also noticing he's becoming a really good storyteller. He's spinning this tale of him being on a boat with Connor, and he like betrays him and pushes him off the boat. And he starts Trash Taste without him. He's like he told Gart, and it was like he told Grant and and Jonathan. I don't remember, like he butchered like Joey and Gart's names. That was so funny. Oh, I'm laughing as I'm like, oh, it was really great, and a hot topic, because Trash Taste is becoming a very popular series on it's very very quickly already become like the most popular anime related podcast that I know of, like, period. uh and it's just so funny. So I'm happy the video is doing really well with success, but I think it's kind of a new level for him. It's kind of like peak Jackisboy, but like, and also just like peak this series of like the problem with type of series, where it's mostly very satirical and bullshitty and and like putting on a character and an act and stuff. And thank God I almost forgot, but like kind of the reason it passes everyone for best of the week for me, is I'm a fucking sucker for sentimental shit. I mean, if you see my Girl Log On video, like that's the kind of thing that sort of element I'm tapping into, of like, my friends inspiring me, and I hope my art inspires you and stuff like that. I'm choking up now. Him saying like, man, I love AniTube, and like it kind of comes out of nowhere. But like he had a lot of like stuff throughout the video of like complimenting Trash Taste. It's not really a real takedown of Trash Taste, by the way. And he talked. I like that he mentioned how it's great to see a podcast like this where it feels normal, and it feels like three cool dudes. Like, I think Garnt, Joey, and Connor all have this aura of being cool in some way or another, but also one of us, and like in the experience, right? And they know what they're not faking it, and it feels like a genuine conversation, but it feels like normal and not like cringy, like weeby, like we're all shut-ins and fat and whatever. It doesn't feel like that. It's kind of an attractive podcast in that regard. But I really like that he turns it around towards the end of the video, where he's like, man, I just love that, like, we're so connected, and we're all kind of like, it's a circle jerk, but it's this other stuff, and he really likes it. It's except Hero, hey, fuck Hero, I hate the end. It's like, like super like flippant and everything, that I could never, I could never do that shit. But like, yeah, it's so sick you know, I love that, and I thought it was a great highlight for the week, kind of the best for me. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed the piss out of it. I thought, you know, I don't know why that sounds better in my head. I've tried that twice now. I'm pretty sure I've tried that twice now, and I think of it and I'm like, man, that's a cool thing to say, and then I say it, and it's really bad. I just come off like really bad and awkward and cringe. Well, what it be, I guess. Oh well. But thank you for watching this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you again to my patrons for supporting it, including Beamburst, Hazel, Kuiper, My Anime Pod, Najbeb, Unique Namosaurus, and Yellow Cheese. You guys are great. Have a great week. Yo, peace.